High on peg, high in the sky, many of us can recount harrowing incidents of unruly flyers that we may have encountered. A Supreme Court judge did just that today while hearing the Air India urination case. A petition moved by a 72-year-old woman who was urinated upon by a man on board an Air India flight in 2022. Justice K.V. Vishwanathan recalled an incident involving two drunk passengers on a flight he had taken along with another judge, Justice Suryakant. There were two totally drunk male passengers. One locked himself in toilet. Apologies. One locked himself in toilet and slept while other went out with a vomit bag. It was an all-women crew, so they did not open the toilet. Instead, one of my co-passengers had to. Justice Vishwanathan recalled. After narrating the incident, the bench called for creative ways to deal with unruly air passengers, while asking the authorities to consider modifying the existing guidelines in accordance with the international norms. Something creative will have to be done. Maybe strategic seating or something, said the judge. But what does this really mean? We have had many instances over the last month itself. Let's try and get our experts at this point. Joining me at this point is Sanjay Lazar, who is an aviation expert and CEO Avilas, as well as Sarosh Damania, who's an aviation lawyer. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me at this point. Well, first, Mr. Sanjay, if I can come to you, what do you make out of what the judge has said? I mean, he was hearing the entire incident where a man urinated upon a co-passenger, 72-year-old woman, and then he goes on to recount two instances that he himself has faced as a judge when he was flying with his colleague in a plane, and he spoke about how a drunken passenger was inside the toilet. He locked himself up. Another one had a vomit bag and was strutting around. These are instances, many of us can recall different versions of such instances, and then he goes on to say there needs to be creative solutions. How do you understand what the judge has said?
Thank you for having me on your show, Sneha. Firstly, going back to this, I'd like to say allegedly, the matter is still sub judice. I do not want to prejudge any of the courts that are looking into it. So it's allegedly, it is. I went through the reports of the Honorable Supreme Court, whatever is in the media. And yes, I do understand that Justice Vaidyanathan, I think it was who pointed it out, that he was traveling with Justice Suryakant on board a flight and witnessed some incident of unruly or drunken behavior. Drunken behavior occurs across the world on our aircraft. So either we decide to curtail the number of drinks that passengers consume, or we stop it altogether. Now, you look at long-haul flights, you look at medium-haul international flights. Domestically, of course, we do not serve alcohol in India, and that's prohibited. The percentile is so minuscule. And I think airlines in the last few years have come to tighten down very strongly on consumption of alcohol by passengers. So I think, by and large, it's not a major issue. But it also leads us to look at the US, which has some really, creative solutions, like the justices rightly pointed out. There the cabin crew and the pilot have literally the power to just stop, the aircraft from taxiing and take the passenger off if they feel anything remotely even, unruly. I was fortunate in 2017. I don't know if you remember, there was the incident of the Shiv Sena MP who beat up a Air India a duty manager, not a young, 70 or 60-year-old man. And the unruly passengers ruling actually came out, the DGCA car came out after that. I was fortunate to be part of one of the committees. And it's quite stringent. But let's look at the other side. There has to be, I think, natural justice. This car is what the judges are saying is absolutely right. Create SOPs, but the SOPs must be made by the DGCA. This car asks the airlines to do it. I think the onus must be moved on to the DGCA and the government more than them. Thanks.
Right. Right, Saroj Damania, if you could come in. Saroj Damania, look at what has been just said. But do you agree with what the panelist said? This is not a serious issue. How do you look at it? I mean, we have incidences after instances which have been reported. Do you see this as sporadic instances or is it really a menace? I mean, how do you differentiate with what happens internationally? Because it's interesting, the judge himself goes on to say the laws must be like it is internationally.
See, understanding one thing, that India is part of a lot of international treaties, aviation treaties, and all that, and accordingly, the laws which are formed in India also are in line with international standards. So the regulations which are there to put the passengers on no-fly list and all that, they have, of course, these are all adopted from foreign countries only. So, of course, the government is in the process of framing laws, but the laws have, one is laws being there in place, and one another thing is how the laws are being implemented. Like, of course, how the one of the judges that narrated the incident. Now, the issue being that once that incident occurred, there should have been immediate action taken by the airline crew also, and they should immediately report incidents and put the passengers on no-fly list. Now, in spite of laws being in place, people are continuing to do such acts because the law is not being stringently implemented. So the law is another issue with this drunken passengers is it is not only about drinking in the aircraft. There are a lot of passengers who come drunk on the aircraft. That maintenance also has to be done. Of
Absolutely.
course, domestic
Absolutely.
flights, passengers are not served drinks, but at the airport you are serving drinks. So DGSA, there is no regulation over there. Passenger can drink how much ever he wants at the airport lounges, at the airport counters. So over there at the
That's
airport,
it.
at the
That's a very
terminals, they have
interesting
to be
point.
regulated.
And that's actually a very valid point as well. Right, Mr. Sanjay, if you could come in at this point. I mean, you have lounges at the airport. You're free to drink as much as you want there. You don't have quotas or you don't have any limit as much as I know. And you board a
Absolutely.
flight after that.
Absolutely,
There are
Sneha.
some who even
And
carry liquor bottles with
Mr.
them, small
Damania is
pouches of them.
absolutely bang on.
You may
He
correct me factually because this is not an area I know much about, but the fact
I-
remains, uh, there's this rule where you can't drink and drive. There's breath analyzer tests that are done. What happens at the airport?
You're bang on, and Mr. Damania is absolutely right. There are not only lounges, there are bars, there are big bars. I mean, Delhi Airport has a huge Delhi Daredevils lounge, used to be called Delhi Daredevils, sports lounge. Mumbai has a lounge. These are bars where people go in and drink. So they tank up before they go on a flight. Absolutely right. And very valid. In fact, I think even the Delhi domestic has a liquor shop. You buy liquor and you can, carry it between cities. So absolutely. But the car also provides for the car on Unruly Passengers, which is the 2017 car, also provides for misbehavior at airports. So a drunk person traveling or misbehaving at an airport can also be targeted. I think if the DGCA expands and allows, the traffic stop. You see, currently we operate under the pilot in command, the Tokyo Convention Act, which allows the pilot in command to offload anybody or take whatever powers, action he deems fit under his powers. But if we extended that to the airline, to prevent, let's say I'm drunk at a lounge in Delhi traveling to Mumbai, and you stop me, that should then be recognized. It's not at the moment. And Mr. Damania is absolutely right. I agree with him. We are part of numerous international treaties. Are we adhering to compliance? I don't know. Our airlines, like Justice Vishwanathan pointed out, was action taken, like Mr. Damania correctly said. So those are things that we need to see. Are we taking action against those people? Stop them from
Okay,
drinking at the airport. Go on, sorry.
I don't know how much of that, how well is that going to go down with many people, but definitely some action needs to be taken. If roads and traffic have rules, then why not the skies and the sky traffics for that matter? But Saroj Damania, if I can get you in. Now here's the point. The judge goes on to say something about strategic seating. What does that even mean? I mean, is there anything internationally where you have strategic seating? Because it's a simple question. If there's a drunk passenger coming in, drunk also, then you have to define how much is being drunk.
Correct.
I don't know whether even that exists in the current current zone of people flying, whether this much is being drunk or not. I mean, I just leave that to you to explain to our passengers as well. But the point is, if there's somebody coming in an inebriated state or a drunk state and wants to sit next to him, what is strategic seating?
See, there is no such thing as creative. Now, Indigo has come up something with woman flyer sitting next to woman flyers, where woman flyer can select a seat next to woman flyer. That has come in recently. That has come across by Indigo. It's a very nice move to maybe for woman safety aspect. But still, there is no guarantee that a drunk passenger is not gonna. If you see Bombay Delhi flights, Bombay Bangalore flights, they are absolutely full flights. So there is no place for the crew even to accommodate somebody else on a other seat. So there cannot be something called a strategy. And another thing is airlines are selling seats. So if somebody has purchased a seat, how will you throw him off his purchased seat and tell him to go and sit on some other seat also? So there are a lot of practicalities. Of course, it's a
Absolutely.
noble thought, but implementation, practicality, economic feasibility, aviation industry, how it accepts it, how people accept it is a completely different ball altogether. So DGCA has to come in.
There's
They have to
also
do
another
thorough
side to
research on
it.
it.
I mean, there's another side to it also, Saroj Damania. Maybe you're a man who's drunk, and maybe strategic seating would mean what? Make him sit next to a man. But again, a man would have a choice of not wanting to sit against somebody drunk. He may have worked for X number of hours, or taken care of a toddler, or taken care of a sick family member, and must be flying to work. Whatever reasons of just nothing of that, and may want
No,
a
we
very
cannot, of
peaceful
course,
travel.
discriminate between flyers. Now, if person, of course, they have to have stricter rules that you do not permit drunk people on the aircraft. That is, of course, that something can be done. So there should also be a limit again. You only can have 2 drinks and come on an aircraft or something. But problem is how will you implement it? Tomorrow, implementation practically the turnaround time is such an important factor in the aviation industry. They are trying to board you fast. They don't have time to do checking for all the passengers or at least some of the passengers. So now something randomly somebody complains about somebody is a different thing.
This is an interesting part. Sanjay Lazar, if I can get you in, this is an interesting thing. Is it not possible to check on or limit the kind of intake that a person of alcohol a person consumes before boarding the flight? Doesn't
Yes.
it happen anywhere? Is this not something that is recommended? What is the scene? Why is it so
No.
unregulated if it is such a big nuisance anyway? And nuisance is a very light word to say. I mean, somebody urinating over you is not nuisance. I mean, okay, it's sub judice, fair enough. Somebody touching you inappropriately is not nuisance. It's beyond that.
Yes, it's criminal. It's not nuisance. It's criminal if somebody touches you or inappropriately or abuses you or vomits on you, even, has allegedly urinated. There are limits, Sneha, and, I know for a fact that the national carrier has set in limits. There were limits of 2 and 3 drinks some years ago. I think after all these incidents, it's now gone to a traffic light system where it's just 1 drink, and perhaps they judge if you're fit enough to have a second drink, and they don't. I also know that international carriers also restrict. I don't, I know I will probably earn the ire of many when I say this, but uh, I see on specific sectors out of India, we get a lot of Indian passengers who like to drink a lot of alcohol on certain sectors only. And it's not, universal. They love to drink. Our Indians love to drink everywhere, of course. But I see that, on the short Southeast Asia, some Middle East sectors where you don't get alcohol, those sectors people like to drink a lot more. Uh, I don't see too much of drinking on long haul flights. And now with this restriction, I know a couple of airlines have already put in place restrictions where they monitor and police, literally the passengers' consumption pretty strictly. I've not heard of major cases in the last two years, at least since this alleged incident. So I think things are, balancing out here. But I look at also the other end of the spectrum. There are people who can retain alcohol and
Right.
enjoy drinking. What happens to them? They're flying an
Right,
Emirates.
Mr. Sanjay, Mr. Sanjay Lazar, as well as Saroj Damania, thank you very much for joining